Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we're going to be continuing to take a look at the live stream that came out from CA this weekend about the mechanics of Bretonnia. This time around we're going to be taking a look at peasant mechanics. So one of the things here is you have kind of a total peasant meter, and you can see that at the top they have currently 8 out of 10. And when you recruit peasant units, so the variety of kind of infantry forces that you have, it'll eat into your total peasant supply. And if you go over your peasant supply, you'll have debuffs, whereas right now if you're kind of under the total cap, you'll have upkeep is driven down, your farms are working at full capacity and are productive, so that's kind of cool. And the upkeep percentage is pretty sweet, that you're not overtaxing your economy, so it stays kind of under control. But then here, if you decide to raise a bunch of peasants and bring them to the battlefield, I don't know, to meet for a campaign response or whatever, obviously it's going to tick you over the edge, and presumably, I think there's a soft limit on how many peasants you can have here, because you'll have more and more penalties, but I guess there's probably a point where you get a hard cap where just there's no more peasants in the land, you've taken them all into the field. So here you can see you're one over the limit, and income from farms is already minus 10%. So they did talk about in the stream how, yeah, that can be pretty penalizing, but if you do want to pursue a big peasant army, there is ways to mitigate those penalties by starting to invest in your technology tree, for instance, and that'll allow you not to rely so much on peasants. So here I'm showing the technology tree. The branch on the far left, or the stats stacked on the far left, are going to be having to do with your economy for what the peasants are involved with. So farming, so improved agricultural tools, plus 2%, irrigation ditches, water plows, water pumps, all of this can kind of improve the productivity of your farms. So even if you're getting minus 10% penalties for your farms, here they're being a bit more productive. Alternatively, you can invest in industry, which doesn't rely and doesn't get pinged by peasant problems. So bigger bobbins, weaving apprenticeships, improved loom technology, and seamstresses. All of that is pretty cool. So it'll help improve your economy, and you can build that up while at the same time fielding big peasant armies that won't handicap you. So I like that duality. It's a cool mechanic that does reflect the lore and could potentially see further use when we get around to a historical title, which has me excited, where it actually represents what your population is. Like back in Medieval 2 days, the game would actually keep track of your population, and you couldn't recruit certain soldiers if you didn't have enough population in your city. So that would be cool to see this kind of mechanic that they've addressed here in the future in actual historical titles to balance out, how you're using your peasantry, penalties for how your population's being used and all that. But in terms of Bretonnia, they have it kind of spelled out in a pretty simple way here. So yeah, you do have some fundamental choices to make. So that's on the right side is your economy, and then on the left is going to be diplomacy and some general buffs, and that's stuff that I talked about in the previous video, so definitely check that one out if you haven't. It talks about the chivalry mechanic. So yeah, that's kind of how the peasant mechanics works. You have different choices to make, and then you can build up your army. Of course, the army composition of Bretonnia does have a lot of emphasis on amazing knights, but knights can't charge necessarily straight into the enemy. Well, I guess technically they can, but you're not going to get the best results. You do normally want to invest in some peasants. In terms of how you recruit other forces, there's the traditional, trading grounds, stables, rally fields, and barracks, all sorts of military buildings on the left to raise your troops. You get really basic ones here, and then finally once you start to get into a castle past, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you get some of the really badass guys. So the Royal Hippogriff Knights, for instance, those are a unique unit. And then here, for instance, there's like shrines, chapels, battle pilgrims. That's more of the stuff tied to the Lady of the Lake, Grail Guardians, which are some top tier cavalry that we'll be seeing unlocked, which is pretty cool. So this is kind of how you build up your forces, but obviously it's somewhat tied to how many peasants you have available. And I'm sure there's buildings here that will up your peasant count as well, or perhaps their productivity. So left is military, right is economy. CA didn't really talk too much about the economic buildings, but assuming it's a standard medieval build, I mean, you're going to be seeing stuff for the farms, stuff for industry. Yeah, you can see them just barely glossing over it. So rather interesting stuff. And yeah, that's about it for this one. I do like also, now that we're looking at the background here, the UI that they have looks pretty dope with the tapestry woven in the background, and I really like how they invested a lot into making all the factions seem very unique. So that is always very much enjoyed. And yeah, I'm excited to see some more of these new units on the battlefield. I do have a video coming up after this that's going to discuss some of them from some of the streams that we saw. A little bit of gameplay featuring those guys. Like I said, Lionheart's going to be playing that, and then CA did a little bit of streaming with Dogbert. But more is yet to come, and I'm sure, judging by the fact that this campaign, this free LC is coming out at the end of the month, that we're going to be getting our hands on some preview builds. So I'll definitely share more content with you when we get there, but this is a good overview of the campaign mechanics. Also point out that as you upgrade your farms, that's how you get access to archers, which is kind of interesting that they don't come out of the more military side. I'm going to show a little bit more of the stream here where they show some gameplay, just so you get a sense of the new units, or at least some of them, that are going to be coming to bear on the battlefield. Some of the stances that you saw there do seem relatively similar to what we've seen previously. Although I would be interested to see what edicts they have. That's something that CA didn't really talk about for your cities. I assume there's stuff to improve your peasants or improve, combat chaos corruption and vampire corruption, kind of the traditional ones, but with a with a Bretonnia twist. And maybe there's some that will actually improve your peasant cap. Yeah, actually, that would make sense. A way to have your maybe I'm wondering what it would be. But anyways, that's too much speculation. We'll get news on that. But yeah, expect some stuff for edicts that's Bretonnia specific, obviously. Now this last part of the stream here, they do show some gameplay where it's just kind of a generic army with a pretty large contingent of peasants. And of course, as you saw on the campaign map, to get this, they had to go up and over the top limit on peasants. So this is a rather large peasant army, at least for this part of the stage of the campaign. And yeah, you're going to want to reinforce your battle line, as you've seen with, obviously, gameplay for Bretonnia. This is a rather brittle force up through the front, and so you're typically going to want to keep your peasants back. They're not great on the assault. They want to stay back and just tank out for cavalry, and then cavalry is going to want to be deployed on the flanks, on the wing, and hammer and anvil at will. The trebuchets are going to start firing here. This is the basic model. I'll be showing off later, I believe, a variant that they have, which is kind of I think it's the Holy Field Trebuchet or the Blessed Field Trebuchet, and what it does is it launches bags of holy oil at the enemy, which is kind of hilarious. But it does ethereal damage, which is going to be good for targeting certain types of units, particularly against the vampire counts and whatnot. So now they're going to be charging forward with, classic attack around the side. And yeah, this is going to be a good move also to bring in the lords to the center. There aren't any new heroes, I don't think. We have, well, there's the new legendary lords, but then after that you just have the basic ones, which are going to be the damsels, and then you have the paladins, although the damsels now do have some more lores available to them. They have the lore of beasts, the lore of heavens, and I believe, yeah, the lore of life, which is obviously, I think the lore of life is going to be critical, because peasants are going to die really, really quickly otherwise, so you would definitely want to keep them buffed. Also, apologies on the resolution here. The stream, just when I captured it, wasn't that great. And obviously streams, when they stream, I record and then I upload and put it on YouTube. There's a fairly large potential for loss of resolution. Oh, excuse me. That could happen. But anyways, I think you still get the gist of things here. I'll be having another video on the battles themselves from another stream, but like I keep saying, when I do get early access to this, or even, the first week of release, I'll be doing a lot of Bretonnia gameplay, so we'll be able to see the knights errant and the other knights in all their glory. But that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for more. I'll be having a lot more videos here coming soon. See you in the next one. Peace out.